I'm not ready. I've never even touched a girl. It's not fair.
Well, me neither, my friend, and apparently I never will in this game. This could be why Avowed is no more than an 80 on Metacritic, cause I mean, when the romance is lacking, that enthusiasm to see relationships through might be slacking. And no, it's not a conspiracy, no, it's not an Xbox tax. For the love of, can we stop already? 80 is a good score. All right, can I just say that? Do I have to say that? I think I need to say that because people forget 80 is indeed a good score, but I bet it would be better if we could, you know.
If you keep encouraging her, she's going to climb you.
Watch out, Envoy. She seems to have a thing for you.
Careful, darling. I already have a lover. A good one. Skilled with his hands.
Oh, come on. Okay, I'm mostly kidding. The complaints for this game, and probably why it's an 8 out of 10, isn't really about the lack of romance. That might just be me. One of the real reasons I think this game isn't scored higher? The combat. Easily the combat. It's passable, it's accessible, sure, it's decent, but could it be much better? Absolutely. There's a couple of ways to look at the combat in Avowed. Either you can be nostalgic and look at it like it's an old school game from the 360 generation that feels great to go back to, or you can look at it like it's slow and outdated combat that makes you feel somewhat hindered, even though you're well capable of knocking these enemies out. I'm a Souls gamer, remember, and methodically thinking about my combat is my specialty, so this right here looks like a piece of cake. But because the game has rules to its combat, rules that date back a couple generations even, we have to abide by those rules and basically slow everything down. And sometimes it can feel painful, especially early on when you just have a sword and shield. Knowing I can't really break these rules and make it faster kind of bothered me at first. So it takes adjusting to that. It takes some nostalgia and some slowing down to the basics, and of course, treating it like an actual RPG on top of that. And I think once you get there mentally, the game gets better. For example, when I switch weapon sets, there's a bit of a delay there, especially when I'm in the heat of battle and I'm really wanting to switch weapons. I have to plan around that delay, in a sense. I have to wait a moment because that input is a tiny bit slow after canceling the previous move. And so I have to think to myself, okay, forget that. I need to back up and get some distance between us because you can never have enough distance in this game. You really gotta back up at times because these enemies will lunge at you and essentially kind of stick to you no matter what. It kind of reminded me of the chainsaw in Gears of War just sucking up enemies. And I forget the term I used for that back in the day, but that's what it kind of reminded me of. These enemies will just stick to you no matter what you do. So even when you have a good dodge, someone else could potentially just be slapping you in the back of the head without you even knowing. So the question is, as you watch and play this game and you feel that combat, especially right away at the beginning, you got to think, okay, are we going to be nostalgic about this or is it going to feel outdated? And I think it's going to depend on the player and whether you play in first or third person, because these animations in third person can be a bit funky, but I honestly don't mind that too much. I'm able to play the game because it is in third person, so that's a win for me. Ultimately, I feel like I'm a mix of both. I like the old school feel to this game, but also I feel a bit handicapped in a sense because I have to slow everything down and play by its rules, even if those rules don't really make sense this day and age. Being that I come from a lot of Souls-like games, as well as games like Stellar Blade and Black Myth Wukong, which have incredibly fast combat and requires very fast reaction times, as well as fast registered inputs, when a game like Avowed comes along and says, slow down, you're doing too much, it takes me a while to adjust to that, and it's possible that others may feel the same way. Once you do slow down and play by its rules, it gets more rewarding, but the slumps along the way can definitely take getting used to, especially in 2025 where combat has come a long way. A big complaint I'm sure a lot of us can agree on is having jump and dodge assigned to the same button, and that being a bad idea. Honestly, I think this could be the biggest culprit to making this combat seem janky. As you can imagine, having jump and dodge on the same button can cause a lot of problems. Sometimes I go to dodge an enemy attack and my character jumps instead, and vice versa when I try and jump over a tree stump or something. I may dodge instead and get in trouble that way. Even when it comes to traversal, jumping to climb something sometimes makes you dodge. So that can get frustrating, especially when in combat and getting attacked. What they should have done was just have dodge on the B button and then hold the B button for crouching. There, problem solved. But that's not what we have, and we just have to push through this. I also feel a little bit held back by the move canceling. I'm happy that it's there. There is move cancellation in this game, but unfortunately, I don't think Avowed handles it as well as it should. I've played a lot of games with move cancellation and feel that Avowed is just a bit too slow in comparison, because I do feel delays at times, even if it's just a split second, and that has me feeling that the game just kind of can't keep up with me, if that makes sense. So I have to force myself to put inputs slower, and that just kind of throws me off. Maybe it's just me, maybe I'm spoiled. Who knows? But it's definitely a thing. I am adjusting though, and I'm finding a flow with it now, but it did take some time, and I'm sure for other reviewers and gamers, they may relate to that. Maybe some just never got around to truly adjusting to this combat, so it drops their score more, and I feel that's pretty understandable. If I like a game enough, I'll deal with some funky combat. I'll find a way to make it work. And once I got my fire sword in this game, along with making my fire spells more beefy, it started to click a bit more. If you are hesitant about Avowed and its combat, just know that you will see some really good weapons along the way, and that will help the combat get better, or at the very least, tolerable. I'm also really loving the bow and the guns. I think that's a highlight in the combat, even if they do feel slow at times. This reload though. I've been leveling these up and shooting enemies from afar, plus using stealth when I can, and then once I got better armor and weapons, the game just gets better naturally because the jankiness of the combat starts to fade a bit the more you do it with better gear. Not to mention the exploration in Avowed is top-notch, and honestly, a big reason you should even play it. I like Avowed, I think it's solid. Even though we don't have romance, unfortunately, the character dialogue is still done pretty well, with a lot of dialogue choices that are very different from each other, and so because of that, I'm causing changes to this world based on my choices, and I freaking love that. I love being a total asshole too. I actually started my character that way, just being rude and entitled because I'm a noble, and the fact that the game allowed me to play like that is great. Then as the game went along, I started to change a bit. I started to be, more understanding. I started to show more mercy to the other characters. And so that type of dialogue choice is what I really look for in an RPG. And I feel Avowed really does a good job of that. Music and enemies aren't that memorable, but what I will remember about this game is the dialogue choices being so diverse. And of course, the exploration being so good and making it worth it to go through that funky combat, even if it's bad at times. I'm not done with Avowed yet, but I am seeing it through. I even renewed my PC Game Pass for it. Granted, I had a free code. Thank you, Xbox. But still, the fact that I renewed says a lot. I'm enjoying this game. The combat could be better, yes. It could be the main reason this game isn't a 9 or a 10, but an 8 out of 10 is totally fair in my opinion. It's probably the score I would be leaning towards, honestly. I'm not done with it, but I could see myself sitting at an 8. I am already, so there's no need to cry about an Xbox tax or a conspiracy or bias reviewers. The game is solid, but it just could be better if its combat was better. And because the combat is so important, especially these days, especially to somebody like me, I could understand the complaints and why this game isn't more than what it is for the typical gamer. Also, we can't shy away from the fact that there's some crazy die-hard Obsidian fans out there. So naturally, they're going to compare this game to the games that they've played before and what they hold in high regard. So that could contribute to scores being a bit lower than maybe people wanted. A lot of people want this game to score 10s, but if a game's not a 10, it's not a 10. It is what it is. At the end of the day, scores really don't matter, but I wanted to give my input on why I think Avowed is neither a 9 or a 10, and why combat is a big reason that could be. Because combat is very important, even in RPGs. It's 2025, so if the combat is a little bit lacking, it's going to stand out as like a thorn in an otherwise really nice, beautiful bush, you know? So that's my thoughts on all of this. Let me know what you think. If you're playing Avowed and you're liking it or not liking it, did you drop it? Are you playing it still? Did you beat it? Definitely let me know in the comment section how you feel about this game and especially the combat. All right, thank you so much for watching and I'll catch you in my next video. Bye.